Hello everyone, I'm Justin Alder. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about Purkeys Invert, pure sine wave inverter. Okay, here we go. Okay, so on the agenda for the pure sine wave inverter, we're going to talk about pure sine versus modified sine wave inverters, Purkeys DynaBalance Technology, which is in our inverters. We'll do an inverter demo. As you can see right here, we have some instrumentation set up so you can see our inverter working. And then we have a installation and warranty section, which we'll cover briefly. So let's move right along. Okay, first of all, let's discuss a little bit about modified sine versus pure sine wave inverters. Modified sine wave inverters, when they first came out, they were great. They offered a solution for AC power from DC power. However, they were pretty rough in the technology of how they did it. Essentially, it was an on and an off, and you see similar to this graph on the left, the modified sine wave was very blocky, like a step sine or a step wave. It worked to simulate AC power, but at the same time, it's not very efficient. So you get what a lot of people refer to, for lack of better terms, as maybe a dirty power or something like that. Modified sine wave a lot of times will create noise. Let's see, to get my mind together here, to create noise and different things that will cause your equipment to run less efficient. It will also create more heat a lot of times. And so pure sine wave is actually a very similar waveform to what you see coming from the grid out of your outlet on the wall. It simulates more of a true sine wave. And so there's a lot of advantage to that, and we'll see them here on the next slide. So you have a low harmonic distortion. You won't have as much noise. The power is clean, like the utility from the company or from the power company. Inductive loads run faster, quieter, and cooler. Like I mentioned a minute ago, one of the issues with modified sine wave inverters is your equipment will tend to run warmer, which is a good indication that it's running less efficient. And the more heat that's created, the less efficient the equipment is. As part of that as well, it's been assumed or been realized that modified sine wave inverters, because of the type of power they output, they can actually reduce the life of the equipment that you're trying to run. So that's another advantage of pure sine. You're really simulating what's coming from the wall, and it's easier on the equipment that you're using. There's less audible noise and electrical noise with pure sine. And one thing that we found at Purkeys especially is charging systems sometimes have a really hard time with modified sine wave inverters. We offer a product called the TAPS, which is a trailer auxiliary power system. We charge pallet jacks with them mainly. We found that many pallet jacks will not, many pallet jack charging systems will not even respond to a modified sine wave inverter. And so we've since put pure sine wave inverters in our TAPS system, which will allow them to charge healthily and good and clean. So, all right. Okay, I want to take a minute and ask everybody maybe what you would use an inverter for. If you want to just take a minute and answer some of the questions right here, and maybe we can kind of see what you're seeing in your equipment usage. Give you a couple minutes to answer, and then we'll move on. Okay, a couple more seconds. All right, way good. We got some good information here. So it looks like you're running TVs, refrigerators, microwaves, and laptop or charging devices. So those are all really good candidates for what we'd recommend a pure sine inverter power, especially newer TVs, digital TVs, and stuff like that. Anything digital will definitely respond better to a pure sine wave inverter than a modified sine wave. Especially down here, your laptops and charging, your device charging. You may find that your transformers and and that in the cords may get hotter with a modified sine wave inverter. So pure sine is definitely the best option for charging devices. So yeah, that's great. Thanks for the feedback on that. Okay, so here's some examples, some pictures of some products that would function better with a pure sine wave inverter. I think some of these are very common use in sleepers, a coffee maker or charger or whatever the case may be. And again, like I said, anything digital that you see nowadays definitely would respond better with a pure sine wave inverter. Okay, so a little bit about inverters. Let me grab our two inverters here. So Purkeys, we offer a 1500 watt invert. You can see right here. And we also offer a 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter here. So as you see on here, continuous versus peak and surge, what that means is continuous, and usually when you buy an inverter, they advertise it as 1500 watt or 2000 or 1800 watt. What they're talking about is the continuous power supply. So an inverter will be able to supply roughly that amount of power continuously, and in addition to that, there's the peak or surge watts, which is usually about double the continuous value. So for example, our 1500 watt inverter, if you see right here, I don't know if I can show you on the video enough, but can you see it? Oh, maybe you can't see it, but it actually will supply 3000 watts of peak power, which is really important because if you have appliances or whatever you're powering, a lot of times if they have an induction motor or something like that, they'll take some additional energy to start before they smooth out for continual use. Things like air conditioners or refrigerators, freezers, pumps, and things like that. So it's important to have a peak power that will continue running your equipment while it starts up. Microwaves are a big one. Our particular two inverters, the 1500 watt has a 3000 peak, and the 2000 watt has a 4000 peak. So very good to understand the difference between those as you go to look for an inverter or to buy an inverter. Okay, so this is kind of Purkeys' cup of tea, in my opinion, is this DynaBalance technology. So at Purkeys, we really try to solve problems. We want to solve and make everyone happy. So we know that the fleets have their challenges, and we know the drivers have their challenges. So with our DynaBalance technology, we really feel like we can meet the needs of everyone. The fleets, they don't want road calls. They don't want batteries going dead to the point where they can't start a truck. Drivers, they want as much available power as possible with their inverter as they're taking care of the things they need as they're on the road. They want to be able to use an inverter to charge their laptops or be able to watch TV as they're trying to wind down to get some rest, cook a meal or whatever. So we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of both. With our DynaBalance technology, we're able to look at more than just voltage, which is what a typical LVD looks at, or low voltage disconnect. We look at both current and voltage to estimate the battery state of charge, and then we can more accurately determine when the inverter should be shut off. For example, a traditional LVD, you may have a really heavy load. Maybe you're running a coffee maker and a microwave at the same time. Because you're pulling a lot of current, the voltage will dip and the inverter will shut off with an LVD. Whereas Purkeys will say, okay, we're looking at current, we're looking at voltage, and per the algorithm that we've come up with, we can estimate, okay, you can actually continue to run and you're not affecting the condition of the battery for a start of the truck over a certain amount of time, whereas the original LVD would have already shut off. So it allows the driver to continue to use power safely without affecting the truck and the non-start. So DynaBalance is also protective though, so it's similar to an LVD in that if you're pulling the available energy down enough, it will shut off to make sure that you're protecting the truck batteries. in just a second, we'll switch to the next slide. But I wanted to actually let me explain to you a little bit about what we're going here, because we're going to start the demo kind of on our unit here. But this is one of our Purkeys test benches, which we use to test different equipment and make sure that everything works the way we want it to, make changes or whatever. So I've set the inverter up around here. Here we have a 1500 watt pure sine wave inverter. This right here simulates the truck battery. So I'll turn that on. The batteries are actually under the table right here. And we should be good to go. Today we're going to have a little demonstration with a microwave. I'll also be able to turn the lights on to show you the inverter working. You can see a nice soft start up there. And you have some lights here. Turn those off for a minute. Okay. And okay, I'm back. Mouse ran away. All right, here we go. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the LED basics and this battery bank idea, which is tied directly to the DynaBalance technology. Let me grab this controller here and bring it up and show you. So with the inverter, we have this remote control, which is an on-off switch and has some LED indication. As you can see on the screen, we have what we call this battery bank. The DynaBalance Technology is constantly calculating what's available in your battery bank that you can use without affecting without affecting the truck's ability to start. So as you can see right here, the LEDs are on, which means my batteries are good. I have a full bank. As we go forward with the demonstration in a minute, you'll see the LEDs as it starts to use the batteries will start to come down to show I'm starting to use my available bank. So it's very handy, very user friendly. You can see how you're doing, how your battery condition is, and it's very cool, I think. All right, let me set this back here. Okay. Again, if you during the webinar here, if you have any questions, be submitting them. We'll make sure we get to them at the end. All right, here we go. So I want to do a little demonstration. I don't know about you, but I love popcorn. So let's pop some popcorn and show you how our inverter works. We'll put it in there for, I don't know how long exactly it's going to take, but we'll put it in there for 3 minutes, see how it goes. All right, so as that's going, you can see the inverter's working. We have our available battery here, and it will be going. So I'll try to watch or listen to the popcorn pop, make sure I don't overcook it as we go forward here. All right, so another part of this controller we want to talk about is the fault indication. So the LEDs in here also can indicate faults. If they're green, they're indicating your available battery. If they're red, they're indicating a potential or a fault. So, for example, maybe an LVD, or you have a source or a load fault. If you go back to the resource list in our user guide, and in our data sheet, it goes through each of the faults. So if you want to review those, you can see them. They're definitely good documents to have to reference, especially if you have an issue, it's showing the fault, and you want to make sure you understand what's going on. You can go in there and pinpoint it. So it's very good. One thing to cover also is if you do have a fault, maybe it's an LVD. You run the battery voltage low enough that the inverter shut off. If you want to know how to turn the inverter back on, you start the truck back up. Make sure that your voltage goes back up. Just cycle the power button and the inverter will come back on and you're good to go. If for some reason it's not resetting and you feel like you've fixed the issue, you can also just unplug the controller and plug it back in, and it will reset the inverter and you should be good to go. So, okay, a little bit about this LVD setting. So at Purkeys, we call it a dynamic LVD because it's not strictly looking at just voltage. The dynamic LED, you're looking at more than just your voltage. And like I said before, your voltage, depending on the load, can change. We look at both the current and the voltage, and and it's a dynamic thing. Things are changing all the time depending on what load you have in there. So looks like my popcorn is just about there. All right, as you can see right here, we actually pulled our available battery down. Let me grab this and show you a little bit closer here. We popped the popcorn, and we set this up particular so that you could see this, but the bank was working its way down, and we're actually on our last 25%. So it was a good representation of what happened there. Very good. So it looks like our popcorn's done. Better shake the butter in it for a minute here. We'll try it out and see if it's good. Inverter popcorn, I think, is even better than regular microwave popcorn, but you guys will have to get one and try it out. That's pretty good. I'll have to eat some of that later. Anyways, okay, here we go. Back to LVD settings. So we do have an approximate voltage that you set the LVD at. The default setting, if you get an inverter, is 11.8. What this means is that with the algorithm, this dynamic LVD, it's going to estimate that, okay, when my battery voltage without a load gets down to 11.8, I'm going to shut off. So it's constantly looking at the current and the voltage as you're using it, and it's going to approximate, okay, with these values, if I shut off, I'm going to be at 11.8 and it will shut off. And so if you were to put a voltmeter on your battery at that point in time, you'd see 11.8 would be your LVD setting. Whereas with a traditional inverter that just has an LVD, it probably would have shut off quite a ways before. And when the current is then 0, you put a voltmeter on the battery, maybe it would be 12.5 or something like that, because you had a really big load on it and it pulled the voltage down really quick. So this dynamic LVD really optimizes what the user can use, make sure they're using the full bank, but then again, protecting the batteries of the truck so you don't have a no-start situation. Also with this, and I can show you here, we have a removable remote here with a RJ45 connection here in the cable. Depending on your application, you may want a longer cable than supplied. We offer a 1 foot, which means that maybe you install your inverter on the back of the driver's seat or something, and you want to put the controller right on top of it. We offer an 8 foot, which means you could run it around somewhere where it's a little more convenient. If you want a longer cable, you can go purchase one, just a Cat5 or a Cat5e, regular Ethernet style cable. And you can put the controller anywhere. We recommend that you don't go longer than 16 feet with that cable, but that should be sufficient. So, all right. And notice the quick clip. I've pulled it in and out a few times, but it's really handy. You can see right here. We'll talk about it in a sec. Okay. Installation. So inverter installation is something that we hear a lot about here, especially harnesses. You know, your installation has a lot to do with where you put your inverter. So, you know, once you select where you want your inverter, you need to make sure that you have a harness that's sized correctly and is long enough to get to your battery bank. We at Purkeys also offer harnesses. We have standard lengths, or we can offer custom lengths. So you're welcome to look into what we offer here. In the resource list attached, I actually have a hard copy here, but we, just a sec, let me turn to the page here. We offer a recommended harness size per length, which is really important. You want to make sure that you get the correct sized harness. You don't want to get wires that are too small, and it costs you extra money if you get wires that are too large. And so, and Purkeys, we can definitely help you with that. And we're happy to do so. With the installation, you see here on the thing, a couple important things to talk about is earth ground. Earth ground in truck applications is not used, so you don't need to hook it up. We also offer the auxiliary I/O. This is for connections with trucks that have the auto start, so that the inverter won't be affected during the auto start process. So yeah, very good. we feel like this inverter is perfect application for you. All right. The installation, as far as the controller goes, is pretty easy. We offer some Velcro for people that don't want to permanently fix the controller inside the cab. I know sometimes they would rather not put screws through the paneling. We also offer paneling, though, or screws if you want to put it on the paneling to permanent mount it. We also offer a screw that you can permanently mount this controller in the clip, just in case you don't want it removed. So pretty easy setup that way. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention on the inverter harness. If you do have your own harnesses, we recommend that you look at the table to make sure your harness size is correct. And then we also recommend that you run a fuse. You definitely want to fuse your inverter harness system. With our 1500 watt, we provide a 150 amp. With our 2000 watt, we provide a 200 amp fuse. So as part of our harness system, you want to make sure that you fuse your inverter. Okay, the last part of this, we're going to talk about the warranty just a little bit. So Purkeys offers a 3-year warranty, which I think is really great. We cover any kind of manufacturing defect or something like that with the inverter. We feel very confident about these inverters. They're really good inverters. One thing that in the industry we hear a lot about is reverse polarity hookup. And it may not necessarily be during the initial installation. Maybe they're doing some maintenance on the batteries and they accidentally hook the harness up backwards at the battery. This inverter is protected from that via some fuses, and the fuses can be replaced and the inverter will not be damaged. If they do that on site, it does void the warranty, but Purkeys is willing to repair that at minimal cost. Please get a hold of our tech line and get your inverter back. We'll get it fixed for you, and you'll be able to keep your warranty, and everything will be good. So and that's really it as far as warranty. We'll go on to the last one here and talk about any questions, if anybody has any questions. Okay, so it looks like we got one here. How do I reset the inverter? Does it automatically work again if it's shut off because of low voltage, but then the batteries have been charged? So yeah, that's a good question. Say that you're running the inverter, the voltage has went down, the inverter shut off with the LVD. Yeah, you then restart the truck, the voltage comes back up. The inverter will still be showing an LVD fault. In fact, I can probably maybe able to even show you one here. Let's see. Turn it back on. Turn on some lights here. We'll pull the inverter down. Oh. You can see the battery banks coming down. Now we have an LVD fault. What we'll need to do, make sure our voltage comes back up. We pulled that down pretty quick, so we probably are okay. Again, you just toggle the power and it comes back on, you're good to go. So, awesome. Very good question, thank you. Any other questions? So I want to remind everybody that we do have a webinar coming up in December on liftgate charging. If you go to the resource list and click on the link, you can register. So we hope to see you there for the next webinar in December. Also, if you'd like to know more information about our Purkeys invert power or pure sine wave inverter, please indicate whether you do or you don't, and we can send you more information. Again, in the resource list, we have the data sheet and the user guide, which I think are really good. They have a lot of information in them. Most of the stuff I've covered today is covered in there, if not more in detail. Please go there and open those and check out our inverter and see if it's perfect for your application. We feel like it's a really good product. And we feel like it would be something that if you need an inverter, if you need AC power, you're protected. You have DynaBalance technology, which gives you the most available bank you can use without affecting a truck and keeping it from not starting. I think it would be a really good product. So any more questions come up in the meantime? Oh, okay. Yeah, good. So are there any USB charging ports? I didn't mention that, but there are. On the inverter, we have two USB charging ports. Nowadays, USB is very common, and so you can charge directly from the inverter with USB. So very good question. All right. Any other questions? I think we're good to go. I want to thank everybody for allowing us to do a webinar today and participating. We hope that you have a good time, and when you see our inverters, you'll be happy with them. So thank you. We'll talk to you later.